Hi, everybody.
Welcome back. This is our third episode of the Report Cards podcast, where we talk about politics, conspiracies, crap, everything that goes on in the world. We just kind of give you our own little take and maybe a little insight on the situation.
And you're a pro at this already. I'm really proud of you.
Hey, it's a little bit of practice. I've, learned it all from my mother, who's listening eventually once we release this all. We appreciate you for listening. Hope you can like, subscribe, do all the things that you're supposed to do. It really helps us out and keeps us motivated. So appreciate it. What are we talking about? What's the first thing on your docket?
Well, I would like to talk about the Durham investigation and the Russia hoax, the Sussman case. I would like to talk about BidenLaptopEmails.com.
Okay.
Why they're out there, how they're out there, and they're there for everyone to see. Even those people who still use Google can.
So when did this website come into play? Because I've never heard about at least the website. I mean, it makes sense that they're finally archiving it and putting it out there for the public, but I feel like this has to be somewhat new.
And this was Garrett Ziegler is this person's name, and he worked for the Trump administration, and he's the one who created this, I guess, web page.
Yeah.
That you can search all the Biden laptop emails on it. I'm happy to say that it works.
Sure.
Even if you use Google.
Well, I'm just curious to see, especially, is it all of them? Is it the whole thing, or have they removed certain things for whatever reason? Just because now that you kind of open source this to everybody, anything and everything that's in there of like horrible things that he could be held accountable for and be indicted for and all these things, I feel like that immediately would be a fire lit to where, all right, this is it, and he should be held accountable. So I'm just curious to where, are things left out, or where's the situation with him?
Well, we're only now seeing this for the first time. We've known about the existence of the Hunter laptop
For years.
for
Year
well
and a half.
over 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, I think it broke in October,
Right before the election.
right before the election. And of course, our media, our corrupt media, our fake news has found a way to block it from all of us.
Yeah, with that much time and people interested in it, I feel like anything that's serious enough to where he could be held accountable for something would be happening a year ago, let alone right now.
Well, it wouldn't have, because if the FBI, which is another 3-letter agency that is corrupt as well,
Mm-hmm.
and that's coming out in the Durham investigation, that they literally claim that they don't know anything about this Hunter laptop.
Yeah.
While that's not true, we have testimony and
Rudy Giuliani, or whatever his name is, he tried giving it to him.
Exactly. Well, and actually the repair person, I don't know his name, please forgive me, a good patriot, he did the right thing, and he contacted the FBI in 2019 to tell him what he had. They sat on it and didn't do anything and hid it from the country. And yes, our election would have completely turned out differently.
I think
had
so, for
that
sure.
come out.
Well, and it did, obviously, and I think it did make an impact for certain people, but when you look at it, the whole every social media, every MSNBC, all of the mainstream media completely shut it down as a Russian hoax, which is crazy because when you have all these massive sources say, all right, this is disinformation, we are against disinformation, fake news, we're against all of this, we're going to shut it down, make sure nobody can spread it because it's causing so much harm. And then little do we know, a year later, 2 years later, all of these things are like coming to fruition. And what's frustrating for me seeing that and being a part of it even is, well, at first it was fake news, it was disinformation. Well, now we've looked into it, now it's not. How can this function exist when, especially when it's controlled by the government or manipulated by the government? Like, that's so wrong. That is not how anything should be, especially when it has serious consequences like the election or COVID or anything like that. Our economy, all of these things are heavily impacted by what these massive infrastructures deem is real in that moment. If it goes against them or not, it's a joke.
Well, the good news is they've been bad all along. Mm-hmm. They've been hiding information from us all along. Now it's just coming out, and it's coming out faster. So the old theory was it's a conspiracy theory for about 6 months, yep, and then it becomes truth.
Well, it's a Russian disinformation campaign.
Well, now we don't even have to wait 6 months for our conspiracy theorists or theories to be legitimized, because we now have access to get the truth out there.
Yeah.
They can't stop us, you know.
They're making it damn hard to, that's for sure. They're trying their best to stop everything. And it is a hard line, though, which maybe we'll get into this a little bit later, but is there a role for them to play into curbing disinformation or not?
Why would we not want to know the truth?
Well, that's the thing is, you know, we might not necessarily know what the truth is, but is there a role for the government or mainstream media to kind of step in and start guiding the conversation? Obviously, this is an obvious no from us. We know that, but I'm just trying to challenge.
Put yourself in someone else's shoes. Is that what you're doing?
Well, yeah. Is there a scenario to where it is important that, you know, science and the government or whoever comes in and says, wait a minute, no, this is a bad thing that everybody's starting to really kind of hone in on, and it does do harm. I mean, I can't necessarily think of one off the top of my head, but there could be.
Well, like let's just talk about Hunter Biden. Well, the truth of the corruption.
Yeah.
How is that bad that it's coming out?
Well, it's not. It's only bad for Joe Biden, especially if he is involved in his son's actions and seeing the completely obvious and common sense of like, oh, this man gets this high ranking of job with the Ukrainian government, getting crazy amount of money for zero experience and having nothing to do with it. And is he cutting a check to daddy or, you know, the big guy, whatever, his involvement with that? I mean, that is government corruption on the highest level, in a sense, to where, how is this possible? How is this possible? And then two, this is separate, but like when he's selling his art and people are anonymously giving him $500,000+ for his shit art. What? This is more crazy than NFTs. People wanting to give him an anonymous donation of $500,000 for his piece of shit art. What? How is that not a red flag? To anybody, that is just straight up common sense. This man is not an artist. He just got a giant check for shitting on a canvas, calling it art. What?
And again, it's the deep state trying to convince a lie.
Well, they're getting ahead of the narrative. They're controlling the narrative as best as they can.
Yes, but the great thing about the truth, Nick, is it makes sense.
Yes. And it always comes out eventually.
And now that it is coming out, it's a great time to be alive, and it's a great time to be talking about it and to have discussions, because we don't have all the answers. And we don't claim to have all the answers. And a lot of what we say in this podcast is our opinion.
Yeah.
But it is coming from research that we're doing. And you're going to go ahead and stop using Google and start using maybe Brave, because it is being censored. We know now, Twitter, Facebook, all of them censor. The only platform out there right now that is not censoring is Truth Social.
For now. I mean, there will be a time to where either they will self-censor or they'll be the only platform that doesn't, and maybe they'll be successful, maybe they won't. You never know. It's where do they make their money? From advertisers. Who's going to advertise on Truth Social when there is something that is exploitive or explicitive or whatever the word is? No advertisement's going to want to be like, yeah, put my ad on this post that has something not what we want our company to be represented by. Even if they do think it's a good thing, it's not a good thing for marketing and advertisements.
Well, how do you think those advertisers over at Twitter feel right now?
I mean, that's why they give them all the money, is because they know for the most part that their ads are at least and not their ads, but the content on their platform is being censored. Yeah.
So you think advertisers prefer?
Absolutely. For sure. 100%. Not the user, not the content creators, not the audience. No, they don't want the censorship for the most part, but the advertisers demand it to a point.
I can't think of one example of why we should censor. If we are truly Americans and believe in free speech, why would you censor?
Yeah, but it's not, the government is not censoring anything. It is the private companies that are censoring it out of their duty to the shareholders to make money off of the advertisers.
Their duty to the shareholders, which they lied and said they have less than 5% bots on their platform.
All right, if we're getting, are we getting into Twitter or what?
I think we probably need to move on to Twitter, because we're talking about censoring and free speech. And
let's get into Twitter.
Okay.
So you just brought up the bots thing. Like Elon Musk. Love Elon Musk to death. He's probably not only the most influential person, I think, in the history of human beings, at least in this generation, but probably will be 100 years from now, we will be thinking of him as 10 times greater and more influential than Albert Einstein or whatever. Like, that's how highly I think of him now, the influence that he has today in the world and the future. Like, he is our human savior, in my opinion. Loving him to death. But this whole Twitter thing that's going on where he, offers to buy Twitter, they're like, no, wait a minute. And then they finally say, all right, let's go through with it. And now he's like, no, wait a minute. Let me look at this. It pisses me off. Like, love Elon to death here. But
would you want to buy something that is not worth what you offered to pay for it? It's called doing your due diligence.
I don't doubt that. That's not the problem. Is if he wants to get the maximum value out of it at the end of the day. But I don't think still even that's his goal. I think if anything, he's doing a few things, one of which maybe is to just get the price lower and still buy it. I honestly don't think that that's the goal now at this point. Because
maybe the goal was for him to just point out to the American people or the people of the world that, yes, Twitter censors. Twitter
he
is full of bots.
He definitely did a good thing with that, but what pisses me off is, like, for all the people who are following this, especially the people who are like buying directly into Twitter stock and, the shareholders expecting now this big payout, in a sense, of them being bought out for $44 a share or whatever, $44 billion, and that's $50 something on the share price, whatever. And now the talks of him wanting to investigate, I just don't think that's the case. If anything, I think he's trying to find his out of the deal. And that pisses me off. Is that the case? I don't think so. Who knows? I don't know. But it seems like that's what's happening. And he's using these bots as a red herring almost. Every social media site has bots. Twitter, in a sense, needs these bots. And these
Why
bots,
do they need bots?
Well, here's the thing with bots. Bots aren't all fake accounts necessarily designed to... There are bots that absolutely do specific things. Tracking data, answering questions. They create these bots specifically to better utilize the technology in a sense. It's there for a reason. If I'm not fancy on this, but there is a reason for these bots, and it's not all negative. It's not just fake accounts. No, they're there for a reason to help the platform utilize itself better. So it's not all negative. And I know Elon Musk knows that. And I think he's just doing this in a sense to either get out of the deal or get a lower price on the deal, both of which could be very negative to the people who initially were told, like, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what's going to happen. But I think with the overall economy looking the way that it is in the stock market and all of these things, I think he's shitting his pants and he's like, wait a minute, I don't necessarily want to move forward with this deal right now based off of how everything in the world is going. And I've kind of made my point. And if that were to be the case, I think it would be awful.
Okay, so let's say you're buying a house and you do a home inspection and you do a sewer scope. And let's say that the sewer has a break in it. It's a $30,000 fix.
Mm-hmm. I get what you're going at. You want the value of what it's worth, no matter what. And I get that.
So how is what he's doing any different than that?
We won't know until we know, no matter what.
Well, we know a lot more today than we did prior to Elon coming in and asking to buy Twitter.
Listen,
at a very good price, right?
I'm not trying to defend Twitter and shit on the guy that I love the most in this world that I've never met. Like, I just think something is up and it's not looking good. And it's not looking good for the future of Twitter, regardless of if he buys it or not. But
well, if it looks like shit, smells like shit, it's shit.
Well, yeah. But Twitter and Facebook and all of those...
Did you have a Twitter account? Do you have a Twitter?
I don't.
I've never tweeted.
Once I heard the news that Elon was going to buy it, I made an account and I followed one person, Elon Musk. But that's it. I've never used Twitter. I could never really get into it. I hate social media across the board in general. But, I could absolutely see myself liking a Twitter. But I'm only going to get on that if Elon Musk moves forward and purchases it and kind of breaks it up a little bit and stops the censorship. Like, no matter what, I want him to. I think we need him as a society. We need him to buy it, because I can see a few things happening to Twitter if he does move forward with it. I don't think the financial incentive is necessarily there. I think it will come. I think he'll, double, triple his money over a long period of time. But I do see him making Twitter more of an open source platform. And if that were to be the case, oh my God, that would just be incredible. It definitely takes out a lot of the incentive for advertisers in the future. It takes out the incentive for him to necessarily make money too. But
do you know Twitter doesn't make money right now?
Nothing in tech really makes that much money. It burns cash like crazy. But the growth and the potential is there to make money. And there is money being made. It's just not necessarily...
So, from what you understand, when or if Elon Musk buys Twitter, he wants to make it a true free speech platform.
Yeah, I think
he said that.
Yeah, I think he will. I think he'll. I
And
mean, he's a pioneer of freedom of speech as it is now. I don't think he'll ever go back on that. If he buys Twitter, I think he'll absolutely go through with that.
So even if he buys Twitter at a lower price, because it's reevaluated now that we know that it does have so many bots on it, which bots aren't real people. So if I'm an advertiser,
I get that.
I don't want to be told, oh, well, we have 5 billion Twitter followers or whatever, and it's only half of that.
Sure. No, I get that. But again, not all bots are bad. And bots are absolutely necessary and required to be a part of this entity. I think that's...
See, I don't believe that's the case.
It is. Now, I'm not smart enough or computer orientated enough to really describe why it is, but I know that it is. It makes sense that it is. These are not all comprised of, fake emails, fake accounts from Russia that are just, piling on there. Of course, there's a lot of them. Probably more than half of that, whatever, 5%, which is millions and millions of accounts are useless and fake or whatever, bots. But the other bots are not there for those reasons. They're there to make the functionality of the system work, and that's important to understand.
But couldn't you make it work with less than 5% of...
I don't know. Probably.
Do you really need 50% of your followers being bots?
But that's different. Those are not the same bots that I'm talking about. Those fake paid for bots, essentially, that followers have, or the influencers have that are followers, and half of them are fake, or 90% of them are fake. Those aren't what I'm talking about. I don't know.
Okay. Moving on.
But I do. I really hope that the deal goes through. What makes me nervous about this is I think that this is being brought up for an out on the deal. And if that's the case, God, that would just be awful. That would just be awful.
Why would it be awful?
Because then they would maintain ownership and continue flushing the turd down the toilet of awful censored social media sites. If we have a social media site, besides the true, I'm talking a mainstream big time player, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, that dedicates themselves to not censoring, now you've created an environment that is open and
open source.
No, that's not really what it means, but you've just created an environment where the internet can flourish and be what the internet was in its inception, which was this wild, wild west of, not all good things. There were terrible things that happened, but at the same time, it just skyrocketed potential of communication, knowledge, and just reaching every single person. That's the whole point. That's the beautiful of freedom of speech in general, but communications. I mean, you need to have it all out there. Earlier you kept, saying that they should be required to not censor. Well, that's not true, and it shouldn't necessarily be that way of like you must be, unless you want to label them as utility companies and regulate them like that. Coming from a somewhat principled person in the sense of like, well, I don't want my government to maintain, we're just creating this company a utility so we can legislate it a little bit more. I don't like that idea.
I'm not saying that they need to become a utility. What I'm saying is that if they are truly saying that they are a platform for communication and free speech, they should be held accountable to that standard.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily think that their meaning of freedom of speech is the same as what we do, and that's not at their fault. Like, okay, that creates competition.
But who sets the rule on who to censor? Like when they banned and censored President Trump.
It's fucked up. It's crazy. It's crazy. that happened. And they'll be, oh, well, he incited violence. He created this, January 6th. He did all of these things. And I'm like,
says who?
You're crazy. But that's the thing, is that in that moment, they deemed it worthy enough to perma-ban the fucking sitting president of the United States.
The best president we've had in my lifetime.
Regardless of that statement. It's fucking insane.
I believe that.
It's insane.
And I think you believe it too.
For the most part, I do, but it is insane that one of the biggest platforms in the world took our sitting president off.
And what was ironic is Trump made Twitter
what
Twitter was.
Oh, well, I mean,
everybody looked to Twitter
for him.
Well,
for years, he bolstered the mainstream media and these social media companies. He bolstered them because there was so much incendiary shit coming off of him. Like, he made all of it work and make a shit ton of money there for a while. And they miss him dearly. They lost probably billions banning him.
Well, just like
billions.
Just like our, our mainstream media, your MSN, your CNNs, your fake news, they miss Trump tremendously.
Well, that's why every other word comes out of their fucking mouth is still Donald Trump. This is Donald Trump's economy and Russian war economy.
So how long will it be Donald Trump's economy?
Until Joe Biden dies, of course. And then it'll be it's still his economy until Kamala Harris gets impeached or replaced. I mean, it's still always going to be Donald Trump, because that's the only thing that's getting people to watch them is the next bullshit story of like, oh, how is this Donald Trump's fault? Nobody believes you. That's why you're dying. CNN is dying, and all of them are dying. And the only thing that will bolster them and bring them back to at least a respectable entity is when Trump reruns and probably wins. Then they'll start making money again.
Well, let me ask you this. What if one of the fake news channels decides to start telling the truth? What will happen?
They won't. They can't. Because the ones that will tell the truth aren't a part of the game, and like a Joe Rogan or an independent actual journalist in the world who gets enough followings, and then that's the truth sayers, or at least the people that have conversations and debate. The mainstream media are never going to be those people because they're not allowed to. They're bought out and paid for by lobbyist government people, the rulers of the world in a sense. I mean, it's not possible for them to start coming up with the truth. And if they do, they have a rogue journalist, well,
they're gone.
Yeah, they're gone. That journalist is not going to exist or be a part of that entity. I mean, unfortunately, I'm pessimistic of their ability to actually report on truth and provide it to people. Where now there is major competition that gets, on average, way more eyes and attention on a daily basis than most of them combined, and that's great.
So what, in your opinion, are going to happen to the CNNs and the NBCs?
They're going to lose a shit ton of money until Trump gets back in. They're going to lose a shit ton of money. They already failed massively on their CNN Plus. It's humorous. It's great to see the straight up rejection of them. That's great, because people, I don't know the exact number, but they had 10,000 active people for the first month or so, and it's you could get a startup YouTube channel that has more active followers than that, and that's millions and millions and millions of dollars got pumped into that and just straight down the toilet. So yeah, I mean, I think they're gonna die or flush out, or either gonna start merging together to survive, or they're just gonna burn money like crazy until Donald Trump comes back to the forefront and the hatred really comes back to the forefront, and that's how they're going to sell news bites.
Well, and selling propaganda doesn't pay well in the end.
Well, and I think just the whole medium in general is just falling out. People don't watch TV anymore. They don't.
You're right. I don't watch TV. And if I do watch for a few minutes, It is usually Fox, and I do it just so I can see what other people are seeing.
Well, it's just different now. I mean, my generation, like, yeah, there's plenty of people that still watch
But you're
TV.
also going on social media, and that's we know now that's not very truthful either.
Well, that is where a lot of people get their information on the news and stuff, but as just just straight up entertainment and time and giving somebody an attention, the TV is not the one like it used to be 10, 20, 30 years ago. That's just not what it is. When you put a commercial in any setting, I'm done. I turn it off. I don't fucking care. Like, my generation and younger especially do have nothing to do with it for the most part and will not. So it's going to go away. It will die. It will burn, which is great. Besides football, I mean, you just don't have young people in general watching television and supporting the whole business model, which is selling commercials and advertisements. That's it. That's the whole thing, and they're getting rid of it. It's dying, which is good. So,
okay.
I don't know. I'm excited to see that as a young person.
I like it too. I don't think we need to put our kids in front of a television or waste time watching something that is fake news. And
yeah. Well,
and brainwashing.
Entertainment's still good, and that's always the necessary. It's going to be there. That's not going away. It's just how people enjoy it. They're just not going to use the medium of a fucking television like cable. They're not going to use cable anymore. They're going to have their streaming services, their social media, their YouTubes, and boom, podcasts, Spotify, whatever. Like, that whole side is skyrocketing and blowing up so much. It has for the last 10 years, but like, that's where I spend all of my time of consuming shit is on YouTube, Spotify, podcasts, shit like that. For me personally. And I do see a massive shift in my generation and younger doing exactly that. Watching authentic, real people doing their thing and not some paid for bot that's just bullshit.
But we also know that YouTube censors.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just unfortunately the function of that business model. Is if you're making all of your money off of ads and advertisements and data, you need people's attention, you need people to watch it and look at it and click buy now and all of that shit, and you won't have the advertisers want to give them that money to be on that platform if they know that the post above it and on it and right next to it could be incendiary or awful. I get that. It makes sense. And that's where, again, like, I wish that Elon Musk buys Twitter and eventually turns it into a completely uncensored, open sourced, especially, get all of the financial incentives out. Like, have him make his money. I don't know how the fuck that happens. Have him make his money and then completely get out of the financial game with it and just give it to the people. If he were to do that, that would by far be the best.
What do you mean, give it to the people?
Make it truly an open source, like
Truth Social.
Putting the whole business into a public trust and just saying, like, hey, boom, this is yours. I'm giving you the whole thing to play in that little playground, and I don't care if you be nice or not. It doesn't fucking matter. This is your world. Have at it.
Because
it would destroy Facebook overnight. It would destroy everything overnight instantly. Within a year, Facebook and all of the other news.
But what you're saying then is that you agree they wouldn't censor.
No, they wouldn't. That's only if he does those things. But again, if your whole business model has a requirement to advertise and make money off of advertisements, you are going to have some form of censorship regardless. I mean, I don't think there's enough billions and trillions in the world of companies that are willing to, risk their ads sitting next to a neo-Nazi in the world to make that business model profitable. It's just not.
Well, you don't follow the neo-Nazi.
I get that, but it will be there. If we're truly gonna to be the freedom of speech that we all want, there will be neo-Nazis, racists, all of them. All of them. It will exist, and it should exist, as terrible as that sounds.
Yeah.
It will exist, and rightfully so should, to a point. The advertisers are not going to want to put their name remotely in a platform even that allows for that to exist. And that's what would happen. So I can't fault these companies for wanting to censor. I can't. It makes sense, and they're doing a duty to their shareholders to make them.
Yeah, but they're not telling people, hey, we censor.
No, they're doing shady shit like shadow banning their content creators. By not even telling them that they're permabanned or banned in a sense, they're just eliminating 90% of their audience or their future audience. And you don't
see that as being wrong.
I see it as being wrong, but it's...
Why don't you be transparent about it?
They are to a point.
And have a list of things. Okay, we're going to ban you if you start talking about...
But here's the thing.
Neo-Nazis.
I can also, from their standpoint, see how unimaginably impossible it is to actually do that. Because your context, the situation, the environment, like there's so many examples and variables that come into play to actually why we ban that person, and banning somebody that they have algorithms and bots that manage that for them. You can't hire enough people in the world to individually look at that post and say, yep, we need to ban that person. We need to censor them for right then.
Well, most people over the last 2 years have been censored every time they brought up COVID.
Yes.
And cures for COVID.
Yes.
So anytime somebody would put in their ivermectin,
mm-hmm.
they would immediately ban that person. Well, now we know that ivermectin is not only a cure for COVID, but it cures a lot of shit.
But it kind of goes into earlier bits of like...
But they didn't take the time to actually find out the truth. They were told by the powers that be,
but that's
the deep
point.
State, you can't have that. We
can't
let people know the truth.
That's the whole point. That is 100% the point, is these bots, these 5% of bots, those are the bots that are...
censoring people.
In a sense, helping their algorithm or utilizing their algorithm to ban people or censor people when those hot topics hit the platform. Like COVID, especially in the beginning, if there was misinformation or who knows, like, again, it comes back to advertisers. Do you want Coke, and Pepsi to be right there on an ad of a major influencer or poster that's spouting off crazy shit about it?
I believe ivermectin works. That's all it took to get censored.
Yes.
To get banned.
Yes.
To get blocked.
Yes. Yeah. You need to remove the incentive of them making, or the business model, basically. You need to remove the business model, or nothing will still ever change. Like, that's why I have so much faith in Elon Musk. I think he will eventually, not right away, but within hopefully 2 to 10 years, he will completely remove that financial situation of the business model. If you take out the advertisers or whatever, you're good. You have freedom of speech, truly.
Well, then how do the people actually get paid?
It's a good question. I don't know. But maybe the influencers enough, like the individual influencers are still going to get advertisers.
We paid a small amount to be on Twitter.
That is literally the other side of that model is, okay, we go to a completely subscription-based service. And is that likely to happen? Yeah, probably. Would you pay $3.99 to be a part of Facebook? Well, who knows?
Oh, no, because it's Facebook.
But that's the thing. If they
censor me.
No, I get that. But that's where I'm getting at is the business model in its entirety. Like, would you pay $3 an hour, $5 a month to be on Truth Social? $10 a month to be on Truth Social? Yeah, you probably would. But obviously, it would eliminate a lot of their user base instantly eliminate that.
Well, how is Truth Social able to do it, but Twitter can't?
Well, here's the thing. They make way more money on the individual using their services for free than they do if they were to collect a premium. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
I forget the exact amount of money that Facebook, it was like maybe a year or two ago.
Yeah, we get nothing for free in this world.
Exactly, but Facebook makes per user, even if you include all of the fake bots and all the bullshit, per user, I think they made like $78 per person. I don't know, on an annual or a quarterly basis. Either way, that is so much money. So if they did do $5 a month, they'd be losing money, and they'd lose half of their people. So it just doesn't make sense.
Okay.
It's crazy.
It is.
There's a shit ton of money revolved around your data and
yes,
just being a part of that platform. So please, Elon, buy Twitter and make it eventually turn it into a public trust, put it open source, and allow the wild west of the internet to create itself like it did before and needs to continue doing. I mean, that is the only way we will see free speech. 100% free speech in the sense of social media, private company. Because no massive social media company or mainstream media company is, like, they are allowed to censor. And they should be. I don't want the government getting involved whatsoever, and forcing or not forcing somebody to do anything within reason.
And again, I want less government. I don't want more government.
Yeah.
But I think that if you're going to say that you are a platform for free speech, my golly, you better be.
Well, but that in itself creates its own competition.
Do
that's
what
why
you say you're going to do.
But that's why you're on Truth Social.
Yes, I am, and you need to be.
But that's what I'm saying is that's why you're on Truth Social, and whatever the next one is, and the next one is, and the next one after that, you will always go towards the one that's going to really focus on the freedom speech side and not censoring.
Because why do we want to believe in a lie? Why do we want to focus or waste our breath on a lie?
Well, I don't think anybody wants to.
People have been in control for way too freaking long. And it's about time that the people wake up and we start taking back our rights. And the first one being freedom of speech.
Yeah.
I've never said anything that deserves to be censored. Okay, maybe I've said a few swear words.
Well, that's not it at all. I mean, it's funny though too, because on Facebook, this is a few months ago. You know, I had a colleague, friend who had made a comment to me on a post. I don't even remember what it was, and they said, "I'll cut you," and it was completely joking. It was just whatever response to whatever I'd said or whoever. It doesn't matter. And instantly,
they were banned.
Instantly, they were suspended for however long, and it's like. It was obviously that was a bot. That was an algorithm that just caught it instantly. You're banned. Hey, here's your warning. Here's a 7-day suspension. Shit like that. And that's like, it's crazy. Not all of it's awful and unnecessary. Some of it is there to be necessary. You know, it's hard because you shouldn't be. I mean, I experienced the internet. I'm 28 years old. I experienced the internet in its infancy. Like early 2000s, where anything and everything you could say, there wasn't really any oversight, there certainly wasn't censorship. You could do and say everything that was awful in the world. And that led to so many unintended horrible consequences. People killing themselves. Like, no, that's not right. You don't have the right to literally ruin somebody's life over the internet. So I can see where, in that sense, the algorithms and the bots that are set in place for truly bullying, spreading pictures, spreading shit that like could literally lead to somebody killing themselves. Like you would probably agree that, yeah, okay, that's a good thing that exists. Like, and just like freedom of speech, it doesn't encompass all speech. I know that, right? You know, but there are still plenty of speech that isn't a direct act of violence or call to violence or anything like that, that should be, hey.
So a lot of these vaccine injuries, they would put their story on Facebook and they would be immediately
Yeah.
banned. How is that? They're telling their story, what they believe.
Yeah. It's fucked up.
There's no justice in that.
There isn't. I mean, it makes sense. I know people personally that did have adverse effects from the virus. Still
from
to
the
this
virus
day,
or the vaccine?
From the vaccine. Still to this day. And it could have been the virus. I don't know. I'm not a fucking doctor. That person's not a doctor. Who knows? It could have been.
Well, the virus has never been isolated, Nick. Let's start there.
I can't speak on that. What does that even mean? The virus has never been isolated?
They can't see it under a microscope.
I don't believe that at all. That makes no sense to me.
Well, it's true. There's reports out there, peer-reviewed documents that say it doesn't exist.
So then you're saying the coronavirus doesn't exist. And we got into this conversation a little bit on the first or second episode, and that's what makes me nervous. I don't believe that. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a virologist, I'm not any of those things. But that sounds to me that you heard this from some fucking idiot who was either anonymous or on his phone staring directly at his double chin saying, hey, I saw this post from fucking Pfizer that says this, and that. And it's just like, dude, you are an idiot. And I don't want my mother to be believing these things that are just, wait a minute.
Okay.
We're going into like far left field of this doesn't even make sense and doesn't hold up, but now we're spreading this shit.
And the thing is I have done my research, and you will soon be doing more research, not using Google to do your research.
It's bigger than this, because research is different than listening to some dumbass say
I'm not listening.
Anything and everything. Mom, I've seen your telegrams.
Born yesterday.
Listen, you are just like everybody else in this world. You are predestined to want to believe what you already want to believe.
No, that's not true. And Nick, when I send you stuff through Telegram, I'm just sending it. I'm not making
I get that.
An opinion.
I get that.
I'm just opening it up to debate.
I get that. And I'm all for that. But that's where we got into this conversation
So the Senate
earlier.
hearings that they had on COVID were the doctors and the people that have been injured by the vaccine. You don't believe that as fact?
That had side effects from the vaccine?
Yes.
Yes, I totally believe that.
Okay. Do you believe that they are censoring the amount of injuries?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It makes sense. There's money involved.
Exactly.
Trillions now at this point.
Yeah. They've made a lot of money on killing us.
They made a lot of money on putting Well, they made a lot of money on the whole situation in general.
Yeah.
Like, we could have used maybe ivermectin or some other form of
but
generic.
they didn't make money off of it.
That's the point, because it was generic. You can't make money off of that. And so it makes complete sense. You can't do an FDA and all of that shit without it. So it makes sense. That right there. We don't have to go to the extremes of like, oh, COVID doesn't exist. You can't isolate that.
I'm not saying that as of right now, I have not seen proof that the virus ever existed.
I bet you almost anything that you could go to a sophomore chemistry lab and have a fucking student there that just so happens to have, and the teacher has a little slide of COVID, and you could look at it yourself. I bet you anything. I don't fucking know. I don't know anything about it, but I have a feeling you can go to any high school and see COVID.
But you know ivermectin works because your favorite podcaster, Joe Rogan, took it and he got better instantly.
Yeah, he also is an extremely healthy person in the world. He also had way more than just ivermectin in him, and he's in good health. 90% of America isn't even close to, half of what he is. So it makes sense. And I believe that ivermectin is and could be extremely helpful in this whole disaster COVID thing. But they could make money off of it.
But okay, so I haven't proven that COVID never existed.
COVID's real, for sure.
Okay. The concept of COVID is real.
COVID is real.
Because they sold it off of the flu numbers, because
Sure. They could
let's
lie
let's
about all
talk
the
about
data.
this.
They could lie it.
Yeah, they did. They lied about all the data. So in 2019, 2020, there was no difference in overall death rate here in the US. There was no change.
Mm-hmm.
However, in 2021,
Skyrocketed.
it skyrocketed.
Mm-hmm.
And all the insurance companies, they were making note of it.
Yeah.
Because they're having all these policies come in for people dying at every age range. We've had a lot of deaths of young people, Nick, that should have never happened.
Yeah.
But they were coerced into taking a shot. I don't call it a vaccine because it's not a vaccine. It doesn't prevent it.
Sure.
It doesn't prevent hospitalization. It doesn't keep it from spreading. And in fact, everyone who now has COVID are the ones that have been vaccinated.
I mean, the people that got COVID obviously are more immune to it or are better for having it in a sense because of their immune system. You know, all of it makes sense in the grand scheme of things of like COVID was created in a lab. Whether it was an intentional leak or not, it doesn't even matter. It happened, and the government, the world government, not just our government, the world government sprung into action and took advantage of a good chaotic moment globally. Like, I feel like that is enough right there to not have to go to either extreme, one or the other, to just know that this whole thing is fucked because the whole world got less individual freedoms because of COVID. There's more restrictions put on the individual and even communities more than ever. And those will never come back. To your point
exactly is that's why I think it was created in order to take our rights.
Sure.
But the thing is it didn't work because it wasn't. Well, it's not working for everybody. When was the last time you wore a mask?
Yeah, I mean, it's been forever. But Mom, it doesn't matter because TSA still exists today, even though it has not stopped a single terrorist attack ever.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly the data, but I'm pretty sure that's exactly it. In 20 years, it's never stopped a single terrorist activity.
Yeah, but we haven't been able to get the truth out about 9/11 being an inside job. Most Americans believe that someone attacked us.
Yes.
Well, it was our own people that attacked us.
But that's what I'm saying though is, and we can get into 9/11. That's a shitstorm right there. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, the incident, they took advantage of the incident in itself and imposed so much control.
But they created it. I believe they created it to offset the election. Yes. Because they lost. See, they didn't think Hillary was ever going to lose.
They blew it out of proportion in general to take the election.
Yeah. Yes. To allow for the mail-in.
All of it. That's how ballots. They got to change the game.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Does it
again?
Necessarily,
the truth makes sense, honey.
But does it have to be that the government created it and then they purposely put it out there?
I'm not saying
I don't think
the
so
government. And I have to get better at defining what I mean. When I say the deep state, not everyone in the government is bad.
No.
The majority of them are.
The majority of the high-ranking officials that have absolute authority and control over people's lives absolutely are corrupt. The people that have been there for 10, 30 plus years, they are disgusting people that are literal embodiments of the devil.
Yes.
I think that.
Yes.
Your local anything? No. But if you've got 20, 30 years under your belt of actually putting legislation to the forefront and you're not Rand Paul, in my opinion, you're a piece of shit. You know what I'm talking about. Like, you've sold your soul to the devil. You've been bought and paid for, and you're worth millions, even though your salary's $164,000 a year, and you vote every single quarter to give yourself a fucking raise.
Yep.
You piece of shit. You're the one I'm talking about.
That's 95% of the House and the Senate.
Yeah. And not all of them are still. They're human beings with family that are all part of this game that we play too.
Yeah, but they chose to.
Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. Oh my God, when I look at Nancy and Chuck both, when I look at them, I'm like, you literally go home and I don't believe it, but I can absolutely see you drinking somebody's blood because they're fucking gross devil people. Mitch McConnell, you're right there. You're just a dumb piece of shit. Like, this is just my opinion.
Yeah.
But I hate you. And people
Don't
like
hold
that.
back, baby.
These lifelong career politicians that have made millions off of insider trading, getting bought out by lobbyists to just give the corporatists a hand job in the back and give them all the loopholes in the world. Like, you are the ones that have ruined the greatness of this country and will be eventually the death of the greatest country known to man.
So now that we know that there is corruption, fraud in our elections, wouldn't it be safe to say that there's no way people voted for Nancy?
I don't even still.
I have a feeling. I believe that you just called them all a piece of shit.
Yes.
So it's my turn.
Yeah.
I believe that the evil people in the swamp, let's call them the swamp people, I believe they were selected, not elected.
Mm-hmm.
And they did. They sold their soul to the devil in order for money, greed, adrenochrome, you name it.
Sure.
And they have literally treason. The great thing about this, Nick, is eventually treason doesn't pay well in the end. These people are going down, and I can't wait. You're awake enough to know when the first arrest happens, you'll be like, okay, finally, Mom was right. I can't wait for you to say, you were right, Mom.
I want that to be the case. I hope that is the case. I want somebody to be held accountable, and until that day comes. I believe the majority of people, just like the song says, most people are good. Yeah.
We want what's best for everyone.
Yeah. And most people on either side will agree with most people on pretty much everything. Yeah. It's just a couple of key words and that gets mixed up and there's debate on it.
And we've got to do a better job of not using those words. Like, I don't use the word Republican around my mom because that sets her off.
Well, Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, doesn't even matter.
But that's all part. That's all part of the deep state's way of trying to keep us divided.
Yes, that's the only way they exist is if we are divided.
I don't believe that there should be two parties. I don't believe so.
Well, let's get into that. That's a good topic. It's a hard one because the simplified effort is like, we should have 50 parties, or we should have at least 3, which we kind of do, but not really, at least in the big grand scheme of things. We should have multiple parties. The things where it gets tricky is if you did have, let's say, even a third or 5 total parties,
Why do you have to have a party?
You shouldn't. I agree. That's probably for the best.
Why aren't we voting for people because they want to do the job of taking care of us?
That makes the most sense.
Shouldn't that just be the most important aspect of whoever we elect
that makes the
to
most
be
sense.
In these leadership roles?
If we're going to do a popularity contest in a sense to see who can push the nukes out, it should be based off of the individual and zero backing by some bullshit party that gets billions of dollars.
And I think Trump, even though I had a conversation with Lauren earlier today, and she she got me thinking, and it's so good that we talk about things because collectively we have the answers.
Mm-hmm.
It's when we don't listen to others that we don't get the answers. We don't understand.
Yeah.
And she had said to me, she says, I'm a huge Trump supporter. I just wish he wouldn't say what he says.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling the same way she does now a couple years ago.
Oh, I did the same thing. I was just shut your fucking mouth, Trump. Like, I appreciate the things that you're being open and transparent about, but just stop it. Just close the door, get your shit done like you've done, and like just stop it. You don't need to do this. You don't need to rile everybody up and piss people off for no reason other than his own narcissistic ego, because that's what it is.
But knowing what we know now, he was telling us, just like they made fun of him saying fake news. Yeah. Well, he was right.
Listen, I don't want to go as far as to say that he wasn't right and all of this. No. What I really think it was is his own ego was so fucking big because regardless of who the president was, there's going to be pushback of some kind, obviously, against him. But he had to address it every day. Every day. The news would come out.
I know, but wouldn't you rather have him than the resident Biden?
Yes.
Who can't complete a sentence?
I get that. But that's not the point. You don't need an egomaniac narcissist behind the wheel of news.
But I don't think he is a narcissist. I think he's very confident, but I think you have to be.
Yes.
And I love the fact that he has no filter.
I do too. That's why I voted for the man.
I hate being politically correct.
Yes.
I hate it.
There's a difference, though. There's a difference. And yes, I do believe he's a narcissist. I do believe he has a massive ego. You don't get to that position in his life to where he's a
self-made billionaire
But you don't become a household name in this world by choice, not even by accident. No, he chose to be in every TV show, movie, anything in the public eye. You don't get to that position without being some form of narcissist. And again, why I think he was a narcissist, especially in the office, is because any form of criticism that he got, justified or not, doesn't fucking matter. He had to respond to it instantly, right there, tweeted it out. Oh, fake news just told me that I'm bald and orange. Blah, blah, blah. Well, my penis is bigger than yours. You don't have to do that. You don't, especially as the president. You already won. Like, just shut up. Do all of the things that you've been doing because you've been doing good things, and be done. But it didn't happen, and that's why half of America easily hated the man, and I don't blame them.
But the thing is a lot of what we heard from President Trump, especially in the beginning, was censored. We only got half of what he said, and they edited everything.
Well, but that's their job.
Until Lauren had said earlier to me, Lisa, but what he said in some of his rallies or in his speeches, and I'm like, well, did you watch the whole rally or the speech? And she's like, no. Well, that told me there most likely what she saw was what
the clip of,
they wanted her to see. And when I say they, I'm talking about, the fake news.
Yeah, which, again, okay.
But again, I don't blame someone.
Did you ever
like
go
that.
to a Trump rally?
No, but I want to.
You ain't shit, girl.
Did you go to one?
Yes.
And during that Trump rally,
I went to Trump's rally at US Bank Arena downtown. Here. This was but I mean, obviously before he became president.
Yeah.
So 2016, whatever it was, I got to see him with my buddy. He wasn't a supporter of him. At least at the time he wasn't, and he's certainly not now. But he went, which I can respect. I mean, and honestly, what was fucking crazy?
I would have went had you asked me.
Well, you weren't involved at that time. You didn't go off the deep end yet. Okay. But I went just because obviously I supported him personally at the time, and I was very excited about it. But it blew my fucking mind going there. It blew my mind.
What blew your mind?
It was packed, 100% full. There wasn't a seat left in the house. And this is a big arena, too, and it's completely sold out to the brim. Every single person that I was in touching distance of sitting in all these seats, I mean, you just had every race, creed imaginable there, which...
They truly love it.
Yeah, I mean, I had a family of Asians that were screaming, loving it. And I didn't expect it at all. There was a very small group of people outside that were, protesting. But you're talking like maybe 30 to 50 people at most at its peak at the time, especially. And you probably, I don't know how big US Bank Arena seats, but easily tens of thousands, I would say 10,000 people, it seemed, were there, just crazy. So it was a really cool experience for sure to see that. I'm glad I got to experience it.
But you liked him, did you like him more, the same, or less after going to his rally?
I mean, if anything, I feel like it made me feel what I was feeling was a little bit more relatable or understood, because the silent majority was a very real thing. I couldn't say anything to my friends or on social media. You can't do that. I mean, I'm pretty open,
but
person.
He was the first one to say it's okay.
Well, yeah. But I think he was the first one to bring people together.
Well, he said what we were all thinking.
Yeah, he brought everybody together, and then it showed everybody else, like, whoa, this is a problem, in the world, and he's the one that we're getting behind.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought was the most crazy was, I didn't expect everybody of all colors and creeds were there.
Yeah.
And they all felt the same way for the most part. And that just made me feel like, all right, when I hear the haters or whatever saying, oh, you're a racist, bigot, homophobe, whatever, that made me think, you are a bigot. If this is how you think of immediately, you're putting these people in boxes, even though you're open-minded, even though you demand respect and love, you are the bigot.
Who would do that?
The hyper-left people that are not liberals, in a sense. No. They're not open-minded. They are people who are brainwashed or force-fed this information and repeat it non-stop, even though they don't understand what they're talking about. Again, like
they've been brainwashed.
Well, they're a part of their tribe, and they want their tribe to be the winners. And anybody against their tribe is we need to stop those people. And when they classify themselves as the right ones, the open-minded ones, the respecting ones, the ones who truly love, that is the biggest load of horse shit in the world. When you're demanding respect from somebody and immediately acting out violence or just hatred towards the person you're demanding respect from, don't you think that's wrong? It bugs the fuck out of me. Because, I see it a lot, especially, trans and LGBT rights and all of that group, has gotten extremely inflammatory in the last 5 years, especially, because if you don't agree with everything in that bucket, and even half the people in that bucket don't fucking agree with themselves, like, it's just like, wait a minute, you are the worst person in the world, and you deserve to be attacked and punched or, belittled and all of that stuff. And it's like, you're demanding open-mindedness, you're demanding respect from other people for you, but you are the first to throw the punch. You are first to just throw somebody under the bus, get them fired, all of these things. And it's not right. It's not justified just because you think it's so, or you've been told that there's 72 genders, and if you don't agree with the 76th gender that just came out the next day, that you're a bigot. And you can't keep it straight. You can't keep it in one realistic, commonsensical way. And that you just fuck.
How many genders are there, Nick?
Do you want to get in this conversation?
Yes. There are two genders. There's a male and there's a female.
Listen.
Period.
Listen. I am a rational-minded person. I love reality and debates and all of these things. But I think it is a little bit short-sighted to just say we're conflating gender and sexual orientation.
No, I didn't ask that. I said, how many genders do you think there is? And I answered my question, and I believe there's two.
There's two. Okay. But again,
that has nothing to do with sexual orientation.
Their gender identity is what I'm assuming they...
And you can identify yourself as whatever you choose.
But that's their whole point.
However...
That's their whole point.
We were all born either a boy or a girl.
Absolutely.
Period.
Absolutely, 100% agreed. That is
Can men have babies, Nick?
Biological men cannot have babies.
Okay.
They do not have eggs, they do not have uterus, they do not have a vagina to push out the baby, and they cannot create milk out of their tits.
Okay.
They don't have milk
ducts. So did you listen? I think I showed you earlier that clip from, I guess it was a Senate hearing, and there was a abortion activist there, and he asked her.
Yeah. I know. It's fucked. It's fucking crazy. Yeah. It's crazy that.
So that would be a crazy leftist, right? In your opinion,
I think
this
it's
person
just it doesn't
who
even
says
have to,
that men can have babies.
I'm sure there are people on the right that believe that shit too. I think it's just fucking insane. I think it's delusion.
You believe people on the right believe that men can have babies?
No, I think people who put themselves in a bubble of the LGBT. I mean, I know LGBT people that voted for Trump, and I don't know. I don't fucking know.
But again, it's not about
people
who
are forcing others to change the way that they speak because it makes them feel comfortable is fucking crazy. It's delusional. Yes. It's not based in reality whatsoever.
Yes.
And I don't want to belittle people who are in that realm. If somebody ever were to come up to me and say, "Hey," or I'm having a conversation with them and then I said the wrong pronoun or whatever because I don't know them, I would absolutely respect them and say, "Oh my God, well, I'm sorry. I'll be more conscious of it going forward." Like, I think everybody should do that. Because that's just treating people with fucking respect. However, the difference is where we go beyond that to where I don't know you, you don't know me, we're not in the same realm, but now we're forcing everybody to not include these words in how we speak to one another just in case it possibly applies to somebody who doesn't reflect that norm. That's fucking insane because there's 99.9% of people in this world don't fall into this situation. So for us to change how we speak, we only use they, their pronouns, these, their, them, all of that shit, and just apply it to regular speech to be inclusive. You're fucking loony. Yeah. You're a loony person, and to say that that's what we should move towards it's scary.
What about companies that are requiring their employees to put their pronouns on their signature email?
Listen, I get the backlash to where private companies, especially big corporate companies, are going to want to enforce these decisions.
Why would they want to do it?
So there's no blowback because there is a small majority, or there's a small minority here, but they're loud as fuck, and they actually are making differences.
But the thing is, if we keep letting these crazy people determine how we live our lives.
Yeah,
that's I have been a very nice person most of my life. Have you known me to hurt another human being in my life?
But things are changing now to where they started changing in 2016. There was a silent majority that came out and said, "Wait a minute, this is getting a little fucking crazy."
Yeah.
And now more than ever, there are people that are like, how many genders are there now? And what is want to be, your pronoun is Lord.
Yeah.
Your pronoun is Fairy Queen.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to be called. But at 2 p.m. you're now the Cat Whisperer. Like, we can't play this game.
Yeah. And
people know that this is fucking lunacy and crazy. And they're finally
we need to just stop saying no. The companies that require it, the good people need to walk out.
But that's those companies and the people who work for those companies, that's their decision. Nobody should force that on them.
Well, it's just like those vaccines. A lot of companies were forcing it.
A lot of companies made the decision to do that, not from the government, and they have the right to do that. I don't blame them for wanting to do that.
You believe a company
Yes.
that employs an employer or employee has the right to tell them to get a shot?
Yes, 100%.
I do not believe that.
Yeah, because as the individual who works for that company, they can say, "Fuck you, I'm gone, you piece of shit."
Yeah.
And what do you think exactly happened? A lot of people quit their jobs for the companies that required those mandates. The government mandates that finally came out. How many people left their jobs? How many people in New York, nurses, quit? All of
what
those
does
things.
that say about that company that chooses to mandate a shot that was not?
It says that they're about to fucking fail. That's what it
Exactly.
says, because they're going to
They're
lose
a
a lot
bunch
of
of
their
dumb-
people. But at the same time, they have the right to do it. They can do whatever the fuck they want. They're in a consensual agreement with that employer to do whatever they want. All they have to do is pay their employer what they're paid and, live within the OSHA guidelines and whatever other guidelines.
So now when all of these injuries that do come out because these employees were forced to get vaccinated,
nobody's going to be liable.
why are they not?
Nobody. I agree. That's a good argument. Somebody should, right? Shouldn't they? But it would be the government, not the private employer.
No, because, the vaccine...
It can't be made liable from the government. And you can't push that on the company that says, the government says that this is necessary, so we're incentivizing it. If you don't want to work here, or if you don't want to get the vaccine, you don't have to work here, you're going to get fired. And then they do it, and then there's adverse effects. I don't think the company should still be liable. And the government made themselves not liable by doing what they did, so it's a fucking lose-lose anyway. That's why you shouldn't have gotten the vaccine. That's just straight up what it is. And if my previous company that I worked for forced us to get a vaccine...
at the last minute
Yes, instantly, overnight. It was hilarious because they sent out an email to everybody saying it was like the 5th of January or whatever, 3rd of January, and half the company was still on vacations and shit. They sent an email out to everybody saying, hey, we are going to, the government is about to mandate this, so we're doing it.
Yeah.
Which wasn't the case.
Yeah.
They just, for whatever reason, decided to light a fire under everybody's ass to prepare people maybe for the next couple months of it possibly being a thing, and it didn't. They didn't have to send it out. It was a terrible decision. I don't know why they would do it, but they did it. And yeah, I think most people were looking for new jobs at the time, or at least paying attention for the next couple of weeks to see the results of all of it. Thankfully, that wasn't a mandate requirement, but that's just what it would be, especially these, middle America, maybe not super college educated, doesn't fucking matter. But there is a clear, proportion of people that didn't get vaccinated. Most of them aren't college graduates. Just saying. They're ones who work hard for a living and live relatively modest lifestyles.
I think it's people that use critical thinking and realize that, hey, listen, I'm not going to get this shot that doesn't prevent me from getting COVID.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's risk involved.
I'm not at risk of getting COVID.
Exactly.
I could die, but the risks of me getting it and dying are so minimal for my age. But
even at your mom's old age.
No, I don't agree with that.
I
don't agree with that.
You think I should have gotten the shot?
No.
Okay.
I'm glad you didn't. But let's just say, throwing it out there, older than middle-aged, smoker. I'm not saying you're overweight, girl. You look great. But if you're those three things, not you. If you're one of those three things or three of those three things, yeah, you should have probably got vaccinated just because you're not in good shape.
Glad that I didn't.
I'm glad that you didn't. But I am saying the people that are, let's just say, they're 70.
Yeah, but
they're 100 pounds overweight. They already have a pre-existing condition that is deadly. Yeah, you should get vaccinated. You shouldn't.
But it didn't prevent it from. ever getting COVID. So it didn't prevent it, and it caused more damage than it ever.
But I think just blanket saying that is disingenuous because we don't necessarily know that.
We do know that the plan was to have everyone vaccinated. And the reason why is the deep state, the cabal, was using the vaccination as depopulation.
What we do know is that the vaccines weren't as effective as what they originally planned for. And that's the difference. Okay, did it help people? Absolutely. I'm not taking that away from it. I'm not taking that away.
Name me one person that it helped.
I can't take that away from.
And did your mom ever get COVID?
I'm not saying you probably did. I probably did.
But I have a wonderful immune system that God gave me.
Yes.
And that wasn't messed up by that vaccine.
I get that. But that's where it's just so divisive and crazy to where, like, we don't have to go crazy just to recognize what is already known. We don't have to go off the deep end. Like, we know that the vaccines aren't as effective.
So have you seen...
That's enough.
Any documentation of all of the injuries and deaths from the vaccine?
Well, I've heard of people commenting on it, like Dr. Malone.
Yeah.
Went on for hours listening to him speak. He's incredible, and the man is getting...
And he knows his shit.
Yeah, I mean, he damn near invented everything that we know about it today.
Yeah.
Like, to discredit this guy over his 40 years of experience in virology is mind-blowing.
And he will tell you...
There's side effects.
No one should take the shot.
But
now,
I don't think he would even go as far to say that. But I think he did
he's
say
saying it now.
I think what he is saying, he doesn't want kids to get it.
Yeah,
I agree with that. It's crazy because they're not at risk of dying from the disease.
But even your mom at being a little overweight and above 50 is not. I'm still 99.8% curable rate for COVID. It's the same as the flu.
I get that. But Mom, there's also a difference too of the timeline of the overall thing. When it first came out, when we first started
we were all scared. Yes. I mean, we all ate up that propaganda.
Even still through June, July, in the summer, fall, all of it. And then we had pockets too of fear and not. So like when...
See, I stopped fearing it in May
to June is where I was like, this is a joke.
Yeah.
However, there were definitely pockets that came in afterwards. When we went into actual flu season, and then we had the big spike again the following year. I know that, but that's the difference of the context and the lack of actual, like, what are we doing about it at the time. I think that's important to at least give credit to, because it's disingenuous to say otherwise. Like, that's why Dr. Malone got vaccinated when it first came out. He regrets it personally, but I don't think he would say that other people his age or older with worse health conditions, I don't think he would dare say that they shouldn't have got the vaccine. I think he has, at this point now, said kids shouldn't be mandated to have it, because that's fucking crazy.
No one should be mandated to have that vaccine.
And that's why nobody is. At least the population, for the most part, isn't mandated. If you work for the government, it is what it is. It is what it is.
Now, do you know about all of the pilots during flight that have passed out, heart attacks, died in flight because of the vaccine?
I don't know, but I'm even skeptical of that too.
Why?
Because what's frustrating, and what I found myself doing when I went down the fucking rabbit hole 10 years ago, went down and looked at every conspiracy theory, sucked my life into conspiracy.
I wish I would have been paying more attention to you back then.
And I was saying it back then. I was saying it back then. But one thing I did learn out of it that kind of brought me back to reality a little bit, and that's what I want people to do. I don't want people to go to any extremes, because that's crazy.
You think I'm an extremist?
Yes, I think you are. I think you are 2 levels away from being a straight up, we have a problem. Absolutely. I'm not saying you're wrong on everything at all. I agree with 95% of everything you have to say, but the level of extreme, you're ticking. I'm at a
Just
yellow. You're at fucking bright orange, ready to go into overdrive, and that's not necessary.
Okay.
Because the principles can still be joined and rooted, where we don't have to go crazy to prove the same thing. You know what I mean? But where I was getting at is coincidences are a thing. The world is so vast.
Coincidences, I can't say that word. How many do you need before?
It just depends on what it is and what you're looking for. That's what I'm saying. Is the human beings and the psychology is mapped into looking for patterns, and if they fit the narrative that we already believe and think, well, fuck, they have to be correlated. They have to be causated from one another, and that's wrong because there's billions of people in this world. Think of the almost infinite number of things that happen in that split second. I mean, tell me about it. I think it's just far-fetched to prove something that doesn't need to be proven because we already know so much as it is that almost relates to it regardless. Like, there are side effects to the vaccine. We don't need to now put pins on pins of things that could be, but we don't know. There's no point in making that correlation because if anything, it makes people into the crazies, and then it makes the people who don't believe anything like that, it just puts people against one another.
Well, there is data out there. Walgreens, for example, they're showing that everyone who is testing for COVID, the majority of people that are coming back positive for COVID are vaccinated.
I believe it.
So how did they get COVID after being vaccinated? And the person not vaccinated never got COVID.
The vaccine isn't as effective as what we thought. I mean, it literally was 95, 99, 85, 80, 70. It just went down to shit.
Yeah, now it's negative.
Wow. It's just not.
And now they're starting to talk about, it could potentially kill your immune system.
Well, we'll know truly 50 years from now when all of this shit is declassified. That's when
we're getting it unclassified every first of the month. So in May 1st, Pfizer had to release all that data.
I get that.
And it's in there. I mean, they knew people were dying from the first
no matter what
test.
People fucking die from Cheerios, okay? So you put a big enough population in supply and then have people consume it, they will die from it. Everything in the world, Tylenol, anything that water, air, it doesn't fucking matter. People will die. If you put a big enough population size to anything, you're going to have a small percentage of people die from it, no matter what.
Can I say, so anybody that you love and like, you don't want them to get the vaccine?
I want people that are healthy and relatively young to not get the vaccine. I want people that are over the age of 50, who smoke, who have diabetes, who are overweight, who are out of shape, anything. Those people probably already have gotten the vaccine or should have gotten the vaccine. At this point in time, I don't fucking care. You do. I want people to do whatever the fuck that they want to do.
Okay.
But if it was my grandmother...
But the shot is shit.
I don't care. My grandmother and my grandfather, who were 70, 80 years old, like, I would want, at the time especially, I wanted them to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Because if they got a common cold, they could die. For sure. If they got the flu, pneumonia, they're going to die. They're likely to die. That applies to anybody over the age of 70 and out of shape and pre-existing conditions. Same thing with COVID. Same fucking thing. That's why I don't think COVID is that big of a deal for a generation my age and younger. It's fucking not. The numbers show it's not. The few people that did die under the age of 15, 16, well, there's other reasons for it, too. It's not just because of COVID. Oh, who'd have known they were 400 pounds overweight? Who'd have known they had type 2 diabetes? Who'd have known they had fucking cancer? So it's disingenuous to say these things. I don't fucking know either, but it's obvious. But if you are over the age of a certain age range and unhealthy, yeah, I would recommend you get vaccinated. I don't ever want a mandate to force anybody to get mandated.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that I have enough critical thinking to not listen to you. And you're right. In the beginning, I actually thought about getting it when we didn't know. Mm-hmm. And when we were told it's 95% effective and it's this and it's that. And I am very healthy. When have you known me to be sick a day in your life?
Well, no, Mom, what's the saying? The saying you always say in your family, your side of the family, you work out to maintain chubby?
Yes.
But you've always been active. You've always worked out. You've always been in relatively good shape. Always.
Yeah. So I'm a little chubby, but at the end of the day, I don't take a pill.
No,
Nick,
but
I don't take any medication.
Listen, that's just your genes. You can't change that.
I know, aren't you glad I gave some to you?
I think Dad beat you out a little bit, but that's the Wisconsin in you, you know?
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've talked the vaccine to death.
Yeah.
And we can agree to disagree. I know and believe that the vaccine was never intended to fix anything. It was only a way to control us.
I agree. It was made to make money.
Yes.
Influence control, influence the election, influence the fear of population.
And when you find out that it was what I believe, a depopulation agenda, it's part of the Great Reset.
No, I don't think that. I've heard of it. I see why. Oh, but no, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
It makes complete sense.
Yeah.
When you go back to 2019, before it ever leaked from the lab.
What is the incentive to kill off 90% of the population?
These crazy evil people that worship the devil don't believe that the majority of us are useless eaters.
So they would be okay and happy to not only not admit it to the world.
Here's some homework for you, Nick.
I've heard these things. I've heard these things.
Well, you need to do some more research. Again, not on Google. The Georgia Guidestones.
I know.
They exist.
I know.
You know. There are crazy
500,000 people.
I know.
Makes no sense.
It makes no sense, but there are people that are trying to use those as a guide.
A guideline.
Yeah.
No, I get that. But the reality of the situation is, okay, let's just say 10 people in the whole world know that that's the plan. Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson and the government have teamed up to kill 98% of the world. The whole world. Those 10 people would have one hell of a responsibility not to say anything about it. And
there's more than 10 people.
No, I get that. But even more so, that influences the likelihood of that getting out. Mm-hmm. And then you got to think, okay, if there's more people involved than just 10 people, those people have families and a little bit of the stake in the game and financial responsibilities and all these things. Mm-hmm. For them to be like, you know what? Yeah, the Georgia Guidestones, they make a good point. Let's kill everybody. Fuck my sister. Fuck them and her kids. Do you believe
that a lot of the politicians and people in leadership role that we saw on TV get the shot? Do you think they actually got the shot?
I'm sure there are people that didn't. Sure, yeah. But I think the majority of them did, because if anybody found out they didn't and said that they did, they'd be crucified.
So when we find out that they didn't and they said they did, because the same people that corrupt people in the swamp.
I hope that does come out. I hope they get held accountable. Like our good old boy Aaron Rodgers, who was immunized.
I love him. And
I love him to death.
He stood up.
I'm glad he said what he said and did what he did. I don't blame him for saying what he said. It was a little disingenuous.
What do you mean? I mean, if someone asked you, I would have said the same thing. I would have said the exact same thing.
I'm not saying
I'm immune from COVID because I was. I've always been immune from it.
I'm not saying he did the wrong thing. I do think it was shady only because of the whole situation of what the NFL was and is still to this day around COVID, and how important it is if you do test positive for COVID, the implications of that, especially being the highest paid quarterback, the best QB in NFL, MVP of the league for 2 years in a row. It's just a little disingenuous when you come up there and say, yeah, I've been immunized, making sure that everybody thinks that he's been vaccinated. Come to find out 2 months later he's not. I love him. We have his jersey. I'll root for him except for when he plays against the Bengals. You get what I'm saying, though.
He used the right word.
I'm not saying he did anything wrong. It's just shady. It was shady based off the circumstances of what his responsibility is to his team, to his fans.
But okay, maybe from someone who still believes COVID really exists.
COVID exists.
Okay, how is it possible that everybody and their brother had COVID, but I never got it?
You probably did get it. And you probably didn't show a single symptom, but you probably did give it to somebody else or did contract it in some kind. I got it. I thought I had it 5 different times, and I finally tested positive 1 time. And it was awful for 1.5 days. That's it. Completely fine. I thought I had it at least 2-3 times.
Flu, Nick? Could you have had the flu?
Could have been. But it tested positive for COVID. That's all I know.
The tests were wrong.
I don't doubt false positives, false negatives. I don't doubt any of that.
Didn't they say like 97% of the tests were false positive?
Even if 3% of the tests were false positives, that's a shit ton of numbers when you think of the overall numbers of people being tested.
But they're saying that the number was 97, especially for the people. So you're telling me that you have COVID, but you are asymptomatic.
It doesn't make sense that it's that high of a number, because why don't you just send people fucking popsicle sticks and tell them to piss on it and say it's the same fucking thing?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
So when we have documents showing that they've tested different things like fruit and water, it comes up with COVID.
Sure.
Because there were tests out there that were positive for COVID.
All the time.
Already. It didn't matter who, All
right. Well, Mom, we need to get off this fucking topic.
How long have we been on?
Either we need to shut it down or move on to the Fed or whatever, because we're at about 1.5 hours now.
Are we? I think we need to shut it down just because.
All right. You heard it here. My mom is done.
I'm not done, but I think that we talked about a lot of good things.
We did.
We talked a lot about Elon, who I found out today you love.
I love him.
I'm glad you love him.
I think he's the savior of our generation.
Don't call him a savior. I think that he might be working with the White Hats. And I like what he's doing. So
he's the best.
I'm not going to say any negative thing about him. Will I buy a Tesla? Hell no.
I will buy one when I can afford one in 5 to 10 years when it's more realistic for the average consumer to have one that's not wealthy or a douchebag.
Well, then you have to believe that fossil fuels are...
Yes. Yeah, we should be.
We have plenty. We have plenty.
No, we should be. I know we have plenty, but we should definitely curb ourselves off of them and go after... That's an hour-long conversation. I would love to have. I would love to have it.
You have to tune in for climate.
We're talking about electric vehicles.
Yeah.
And then I want to talk about the Fed next episode.
Okay.
So everybody tune in next, whatever. Subscribe. I hope you like us. I hope you keep keep with us, because this is what I'm doing. This is what we're doing together. This is a lot of fun. I love doing it. I hope you love listening to it.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye.